Hello everybody, this is going to be a demo of the new Brick Generator and Brick Generator 2 materials. These are going to be included in the dungeon package. There is this scene right here, it's called SFB Dun Text Cree, that's Dungeon Texture Creation Material Generators. This scene is set up so that each one of these, the rest are turned off, is just basically a corner of a room with one material generator attached to it, so you can easily see what the material looks like in a very simple lighting scenario, and you can add more lights if you want. And it's got a copy of this to that object. We're going to be using the export material script to export these. So real quick before we begin, this whole graph is the jumping off point was from this bricks graph by Wes McDermott. Huge shout out to Wes McDermott. He's with Algorithmic, the substance designer, substance painter company, and they make those apps, and it's what I use to set up the substances for the dungeon. If you want to go through his tutorial, you can do so on how to create your own substances. It's something that for anyone who really likes customization, you can actually create your very own, and they will work with my system. There's if you just follow and learn about substance, but if you don't, I've basically taken his graph and heavily modified it to make it work better in my workflow, and also add a whole lot more options than the graph would have otherwise by default. So the height map does work here, and it does a great job. So if you bring it all the way up, you can see a lot more definition. If you have a tessellation shader, then you'll see actual geometry with the tessellation. So you can bring the height map as you see fit. We'll bring it up fairly high. So if you're familiar with the rest of my workflows, you'll notice the same things up here. Main, the 4 materials, there's 3 different bricks, and then all the environmental damages and dirt and whatnot, and then our custom input maps, and that's the standard as before. And we have these new ones down here. This is unique to these 2 generators. This global thing and use heights, the default height and normal. If we're using custom materials, we can keep these on, and all the height and normal map from this default will be used instead of whatever the custom ones are used. This brick dirt, you can see the difference when we turn it off and then turn it back on. So this adds dirt in a nice pattern on the bricks themselves. Let's go ahead and change the color, and you can see how it affects the bricks, and it's a top-down per brick. So if we change the size or the number of bricks, this will also be affected. Clearly this is not really intended for use on the ground, so if we're going to make a floor out of this, we'll want to turn that off. For now, we'll keep that on. And while we're here, let me adjust a few other things. The levels are very powerful here. You might want to remember the defaults here, because if you change them, it might be hard to remember where it was if you don't like the look you get. So I'm going to just change the mid-levels down, go to something relatively extreme, and see what the change is. You will notice that this graph can take longer than others to generate, because there are a lot more options than the standard workflow that I have. I'm cutting the parts, the weighting out of the video, but depending on your system, it may take a while. So playing with the levels here, you can actually get a lot of unique looks. And the sliders do work once it's cached the data, so you can more easily see what you're doing with the various levels. If we bring that up pretty high, we can also then bring the roughness shift down and make that reflective. And so now, if we change this back to a normal dirt color or a black color, it ends up looking more perhaps like a wet look, because it's reflecting the light more than the other parts do. And the second part, we can bring the roughness shift down with that as well. This affects the route, so we can make that a little bit shinier too, so that it looks like that has some moisture in it as well, even if it's not as shiny as the on-brick wetness. Alright, so the next step is we'll look at this bricks here. This is the standard default. So up here we've got our common ones, the number of bricks X and Y, so we can make that maybe 5 bricks across and maybe 8 bricks down. So now it's a smaller thing. It's important to note, I guess, for scale, this is actually 5 by 5, and 2 of those, this is 5 by 10 for each wall. So 15 feet high and 30 feet long. So these are still pretty sizable bricks. A human would likely be 6 feet and only, I don't know, about right here, this high. So these are still large bricks. You could make even smaller bricks if you wanted to, using that. We also have random sizes, so if you want to randomize the size, you can increase this, and so there's a little less symmetry in the sizing of the blocks. The Y will affect the entire rows rather than a randomness similar to the X. The X doesn't go, every row up and down. So the Y is a little bit more repetitive looking, I suppose, than the X is. Alright, so I like this randomness though. And we also have a scale random, so that if you want, you can have the bricks have various sizes just randomly. If you bring it all the way up, it can go very drastic. But we're going to keep it down pretty low. I do like the idea that some of the bricks are a little bit bigger than others, but I want them all to be basically the same size. So that's good there. It looks very organic. We also have a rotation random. If you notice, it starts at 0.005. This is very sensitive. Alright, so now you can see some of them are more rotated than others. This also increases the size of the space between the bricks. So that's one thing to note as well. If you want a small space between bricks and you don't want to rotate it too much. So I'm going to bring that down to 0.1, or 0.01 rather. And we can bring the offset down to 0. Offset is basically whether each row will be staggered. Here you can see that the offset's 0, and so aside from the randomness going on, they're pretty much uniform up and down in a grid pattern. At 0.5, where we had before, it's the common brick pattern where each layer is halfway between the layer below. And you can adjust that, and there's also, of course, the offset random, which you can guess what that does. It randomizes the offset by a small amount. Alright, the mask random sections, if we bring these all the way down, each one affects a higher level of brick. So if we have them all down to 0, then really mask 3 is going to be the one that we're going to be seeing here. And let's go ahead and up the saturation and change the hue a little bit so we can really see which bricks are going to be brick 3. And we'll do the same with brick 2. We'll bring the hue the other direction, bring it saturation, and we'll leave brick 1 just saturated, but we'll leave it at the current hue. Alright, so now with these all down to 0, all we're seeing is brick 3. We can change the hue of brick 3 to see that. So if we bring up the mask random, it's going to start randomly masking out specific blocks. And the higher you bring it up, the more blocks will be exposed. So we'll bring that up pretty high. In general, we want mask random, or for 3 to be higher than 2 and 2 to be higher than 1. Then we'll bring up 2, which is the purple, bring up that a little bit, and that way we'll expose some of those blocks to mask or block number 1. And there we go. So now we've got the 3. If we bring up the mask random under block 1, we'll start actually removing blocks entirely from the wall, exposing the grout underneath. So that can definitely be used for an interesting effect. Again, it should be lower than mask 2, otherwise it disappears entirely and you won't see any of those blocks. Alright, now before we move on to the brick adjust section, I do want to save this. I like the look of this and I want to save it for use in my game. And so with my material selected, I'm going to go up to my window and click the export material. You can also use the hotkey if you'd like. I like to dock this down here because I might use it multiple times. And I've got my group name wrong from a different test, so I'm going to call this brick generator. Let's call it brick generator, and I'm going to remove the emissive, but I'm not going to remove the height because I do want to keep that. I'm not going to set the normal map mode to normal because I'm going to use these in the rest of my workflow for my objects. and so for these I don't want the normal map to be set as a normal map. It needs to be set as a texture. So I'm going to deselect that. And I'm going to merge with group name. That means that if there's another group name named Brick Generator, I will simply add these maps to that folder rather than creating a second Brick Generator folder. I'm going to not override the material name, and I will not copy from previous settings because I don't want to share these maps or use other maps from other exports in these maps. I'm going to click the Export Material button. Alright, now we'll find under SFA Studios this Export Material. We'll have Brick Generator right here, a new folder that was created if it's not already there. And you'll find under the Texture section all of our textures that we got from this map. So back to the material, we're going to go down to the Brick Adjust. This is how the bricks, which start out pretty much uniform, rectangular, or square if that's how it ends up, get adjusted. So to show you the exact, I'm going to bring down the blend 1 and blend 2 to completely 0. Alright, so with all of these set down to 0, you can see that it's a very standardized block. There's no edging. They all pretty much have solid edges. Now this is also a look that I like. It's something I could definitely use in my game. Perhaps this is a new version of the wall and versus an old version. So I'm going to go back to my export material here. I'm just going to click export material once more. Now in our brick generator, since we're sharing, we have brick generator 2, which contains the maps for this new export. You can play with these as well to really get a sense of what is going on, but it's also fun just to go to the extremes and see what the extremes do, when most of the time you're going to want something in the middle. Alright, so the warp super high makes it quite different looking, so we're probably going to want to keep that somewhere in the middle, maybe on the lower end. And you can work the other sections as well. Each one will have a different effect on the look. Glare Intensity 3 deals with these notchings and chiselings to make the stone look more rough, even though it's a flat plane. It increases the height of the normal map to make it look more rough. So we'll leave this here for now because I want to move on to the next section of stuff you can do. And this is perhaps where this generator gets really, really powerful. We still have our custom options here, and with this we can actually add any other material onto the grout and the 3 brick patterns and replace these with that material. In effect, you can have an unlimited number of looks from this one generator because of this. So now I'm going to go to my copy this to that controller here for Brick Generator 1. It's preset up for me. And if you're not familiar with the new workflow, I've got these palettes up here, and I've pre-populated 4 of them. There's the marble, stone, wood, metal, and then these 2 are other 1 and other 2 for materials that aren't, that don't really fit in one of those 4 categories. I've pre-populated these because unfortunately they take up, the base materials take up way too much disk space for the Unity Asset Store download, so we can't actually include them in the package. We do have all these materials that you can download, however, and create your own base materials, and then using the base marble, base metal, stone, base material, and base wood, you can create all of these. So these are something you can create in very little time. It probably takes about 10 minutes to make 16 very different looks, all customized. And again, they can be completely customized with damage and dirt and rotations and scaling to match the look that you're trying to achieve in your game. So in the end, definitely start with the base materials. There should be a YouTube video for that as well if you want to start there if you haven't seen that yet. So I've got my materials up here. I'm gonna use a different stone. So I've got the 16 preset ones here that I've included. So I'm gonna do a few things. Well, first I'm gonna use this. Maybe we'll go with material 1 for the grout. So I'm gonna make sure I've got my palette stone selected and material 1 selected. I could do copy all actions and it'll copy all of those, but instead I'm just going to click the copy button here. I'm going to click copy on main to make sure that the custom materials is enabled, and then I'm going to click copy on the grout layer. In effect, it takes the materials from over here, which are custom, and adds it over here. So in our grout layer, we now have our grout input maps already selected, and our main enable texture modification, and our grout right here. It hasn't adjusted the look though, so I'm going to click this generate all outputs, and then I'm going to deselect it. I'm trying to figure out why I'm not seeing the update down here. There we go. So now we've got the new grout, which is a more reddish grout, showing through. And let's go ahead back to copy this to that controller, and I'm going to populate the rest of the bricks as well, all with stone for now. And I'm going to choose, I'm going to go with the red look, so maybe red material 13, material 16, and we'll try material 12 for a little contrast. And the environment, I haven't actually changed anything on the palette here, on the marble palette, so I'm just going to click copy all actions, and that'll copy all of these to these sources to these the brick generator sections for the targets. And now Unity is done updating that. So I'm going to go back to my generator so I can see it in close-up what we've got here. So now we still have the dirt on, so let's turn off the dirt so we can better see the bricks. There we go. So now we've got our red brick pattern going on, and if we bring down the height, you can still adjust the height as you see fit, because we have in our sections here on the grout and all that the use default height and use default normal. So I'm going to adjust the brick dirt to make it less wet. So bring the mid-level back up to where I think about where it was before. And I'm going to change the color. Got this dirt color that I like to use. I want to refresh my memory as to what color 2 actually does. So I'm going to make it a very obnoxious color. So dirt 2 has an effect, it looks like it's more over the entire surface, but definitely over a lot of the grout. Alright. Now I can also do all my other environmental options as well that you may be familiar with if you're familiar with my work already. So I'm going to enable some damage and just play with that for just a short while and see what I can get. Okay, that's it for the walls. I want to make a floor version, however, something that works for my dungeon's floor. So I'm going to do, first I'm going to just turn off the brick dirt, since that's a directional dirt that I don't really want. I'm going to change the adjustment so that it's not quite so jagged either. Not too much, just a little bit. Alright, so I like that look, so I'm going to export this one as well. I'm going to give it a different name. I'm going to give it just the name floor option. Just in case this offset becomes too repetitive on the floor, I'm going to make a version where it's the size random is 0 and the offset random. So if we go back to our exported materials here, we'll see we've got floor option 1, expand that, floor option 1 or 0, there's no other, and floor option 2. So now I've got 2 options to use for the floor. I want to show you how you can use this with our system before I finish the video out. So I'm going to open up another demo scene. If we go into our demo scenes here, I'm going to load up the floors, walls, and ceiling demo. Save that. So this scene is similar to the others. It's basically all a limited number of materials. In this case, we got the floor materials, ceiling, this ceiling crossbeam there, and these archways, and the walls with the archways. Each one of these can be set up pretty easily. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my material palette for other, and of course these are empty. So I just create a bunch of materials, and I'm going to populate this to make it easy for me to just click a button and bring them in there. So I'm going to go down to my custom materials, and I'm going to populate this with my generated textures from the last section. Make sure that my texture modification is enabled, and I'm going to click the use custom texture button here and invert the normals for the texture as well. Alright, so I can get a little bit of a sense of which materials are up here. Bring the height down a little bit. So now when I copy this to that for my floors, for instance, I can go to the flat floor, broken floor, and the border. I can go to flat floor and say, okay, I want to choose other one and material number 4. I just copy that over. Alright, so now we've got the floor there. Alright, now I want to do the walls. So I'm going to go into my, copy this to that wall. Again, choose other one, and I'm going to choose material 1 for this, and I'm also going to do the concave wall as well. So we'll choose other one, material 1. Make sure that the main settings are copied over, and then just click the copy button for each of these. It's usually best to make sure the first click you do copies before clicking the next. And lastly, to get rid of that red, I am going to do the ceiling as well. Alright, so now we have a much better look of what this level might look like. I think I had a better walls, and this is where the power of this palette system comes in. Before, if you want to change the walls, you would have to go through all the process of dragging those maps over. But now, if I want to change the walls over, I can just choose a different material, click the copy button, and in just a few seconds it'll update and I can see the changes in the scene view and the game view. Okay. Alright, so I think I like material 3 for the walls. 4 and 5 were really meant for the floors. And I'm going to change the floor back to, we'll just do material 5. I'm also going to do the broken floor to be the same. For the stone, I'm going to choose material 15 for the gravel on that. And for the border floor, that's right here. I can have up to, well, I think 16, 14 different options. So I'm just going to make them all the same for now. Alright, and I'll just copy all of those actions over. So now we've got a much more decent look. I like this. It looks like a sandy dungeon or an earthy dungeon. So now we can do these hallways or archways as well. I just added a new part to the script here at the top since I didn't want to go through each one of these and check them off. I knew they were all going to be the same thing, or at least most of them. I wanted to add this little bit, so now I can choose palette stone, update all of the sources, and then I'll choose material 12 and update all groups, and then all I have to do is click this copy all actions. Alright, I actually added a whole lot more to the script than when I first started talking, so we now have a pretty decent level, I think, design. I'm liking the way everything looks, so I'm going to export these. This is going to be part of my demo number 3. I'm going to use this basic idea, this basic sandstone kind of brownish red rock base as for my demo 3 for the dungeon. So the last thing to do is use the mass exporter. Basically, all of the materials that you'll find in the copy this to that sections here are listed in this exporter, and you can create your own, just add your own mass exporter script and populate it yourself. It's very similar to the single one. We're going to call this a group name, we're going to call this Demo 3. We are not going to remove the height, we are going to remove the emissive. We'll set the normal map as normal because we are going to use these in-game. And we will merge with the group, so if there's already a Demo 3 and we're exporting a second version of something, we will merge with the group, and we don't need to worry about previous group name. So I'm going to click export, and this process takes a little bit for Unity to import all the maps. There are a lot of substances here, and each one has all the 5 maps to import. So I'm going to go make myself a drink, and I'll be back when this is done. Alright, so I've just exported all the materials. They're right here in the Export Materials Demo 3 section. You'll find all the materials pre-populated with the textures, and these are game-ready files. So, like the floor or the wall here, I'll just the wall. You won't see the change when it's going on to the, the other wall. But These are game ready. You can just drag them, drop them, and onto your scene, onto your prefabs, and you're all set. So it takes a little step to get the palette set up with your base materials and producing any generated materials you want to make. But once you do that, it's really easy to populate the scene and then export. Exporting the materials is just a single click, so you can have a dungeon that looks exactly the way you want it to look for your game, and perhaps one that doesn't look like anyone else's in the history of the world. So there you go. Let me know if you have any questions on the forums. Have a great day.